Hey everyone, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 933, Black Politics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit the notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. I'm here with my co-panelists, Nagone 11 and Renaissance Man.
How you doing, Mike?
Good, bro. You?
Good, man.
The document is in the description for you to beneath the video for you to follow along with from reference. First item on the docket for today, and probably the only item that we need, is from NPR. Mamdani's political gamble pays off as his endorsed candidates sweep their primaries. Primary night in New York marked the first major test for Mayor Zohran Mamdani's political movement, and it was widely successful. All three of Mamdani's endorsed candidates for Congress were victorious, marking a massive win for the left and a major blow for the establishment Democrats. Mamdani endorsed in three competitive House primary matchups in New York City, breaking with Democratic leaders by throwing support behind leftist candidates who were unafraid to criticize Israel and push for ambitious economic policies. The biggest upset of the night came in New York's 13th district, where Mamdani's backed candidate Daraliza Avilia Chevalier, a 32-year-old community organizer and democratic socialist, narrowly defeated five-term incumbent Democrat Adriano Espilat 71 to represent Upper Manhattan and part of the Bronx. That's according to a race call by the Associated Press. Espilat, who was the first Dominican-American elected to Congress and chairs the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, had a slew of endorsements from powerful elected Democrats, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. But establishment Democrats also suffered a blow elsewhere in the city, including in New York's 10th Congressional District. Progressive challenger and former city comptroller Brad Lander decisively unseated two-term rep Dan Goldman, also endorsed by Jeffries. Plus, in the open race to succeed retiring progressive rep India Velasquez in New York's 7th district, Mamdani threw his support behind state rep Claire Valdez, a Democratic socialist, instead of Antonio Reynoso, who had the backing of Velasquez in the Working Families Party. These districts heavily favor Democrats, meaning Valdez, Lander, and Avilia Chevalier are expected to win their general election matchups in the fall. You know, this is interesting because we were told that, Democrats, during the Trump administration, under the Trump administration, better get their stuff together. They better figure it out. And now you have the leftist of leftist wing of the party coming out swinging and kicking ass and taking names. If you go back to 2022, the midterms back then, you can see a major shift coming from the left within the party. And I believe that same demographic of voters also were the ones who did not come out for Kamala Harris because of Gaza. So what I'll say to this is that, and then I'll pass it to you, Nagone. This is the reshaping of the Democratic Party that was inevitably going to come. That younger, more aspirational candidates were going to step up, and the traditional role of going through law school and going through, the traditional route is no longer needed. At least coming from New York's perspective, I think you're starting to see that now across the country, maybe in DC with the new Democratic candidate who's identifying as a socialist as well. You're also seeing that in Boston with the re-election of Mayor Wu. And you're also seeing this being touted in LA as they look for their Mamdani Democratic candidate. So what's your take as you're on the ground in New York?
Oh, the take is, the take is as how we see the take go down. Without a doubt, the left is a more progressive side, and then those who want to say the socialist side, they ramped. But the reality of what really was going down here in New York City were issues of a populist, economic, social, message that everyone could kind of buy into, who are working everyday kind of people. The Democratic Socialists appeal to them because they appeal to them at a very grassroots, ground-based level. On childcare, transportation, food, and so forth. Groceries and so forth. It kept it very basic, straight to the bottom line, and that's what people responded to. And also, of course, maintaining democracy, going against heavy degrees of racism and these other things, of course, as we see. But what really appealed to people on the whole, pretty much, was that that progressive economic grassroots rep or real message that they really brought out that people liked. People really liked that. They went along with it. Younger people, younger voters came out. You had your Z's begin to come out. You had your millennials really, in there as well. So you had a lot of you had people who were looking at these candidates as something as of you're speaking to us. So just one who's coming out of law school, or one who's who's at law school, became a lawyer, and this and that and all that. Yeah, I mean, all that's great to say for to say that sounds great for overall grassroots politics, and I think that certainly is good. But really, where these candidates were really coming from, people, community organizers and so forth, these are people who are coming out of the community, grassroots, really dealing with daily, everyday people's kind of issues, and that's what's getting over. And what I mean by this is from the bigger perspective, for those who are saying, well, this can only be in New York and it's not going to be any place else because these guys are socialists and so forth. Yep, that plays a role, but the overall populist message of, dealing with everyone's kind of daily life, what's affecting them on a very daily basis, their healthcare, their childcare, how would that relate to their family, jobs, and so forth. These basic everyday things that people are most concerned about and are affecting them. That is something that's going to resonate across everywhere. Now, what kind of label you wrap that up in is something different, but that I think is the big piece here that we shouldn't miss. And Mandami has understood that, and that's why the only people who kind of really went against him are those who were in the billionaire class and some of the ethnic collaborators who were in the city, who were kind of moving more from a kind of a racialized kind of level, which is out there as well. Your class collaborators, if you will. So I'm talking about certain ethnicities that will stick together against other groups to maintain power, but those guys are not they're not in the majority. So that's what's really the look on the ground. As far as New York City is concerned, the game has changed. So people like how would I say, Hakeem Jeffries, who is very much a corporate APAC type of because really this was a really kicking the arse of APAC to a very large extent, and APAC's money was in there, and they were starting to lose. So you're really looking at that, and people like Hakeem Jeffries. This should be a wake-up call to say, buddy, this is where the party is moving. This is how people are moving. And the mayor right now, he is, the top political leader in the city as this thing goes so far. And if you don't look to see what's going on and looking at what's happening in some of your other colleagues' districts who are certainly, not following what's going on here, you too shall be a casualty of this as well. So he's going to have to kind of get his act together from that perspective and look to cut some deals. Whether you like him, you don't like him, however you feel about him, and he's been very successful since he's hit the ground running so far, and people really like how that looks. Here this guy is getting the transportation piece together. He's getting the childcare piece together. He's getting the grocery piece together. He's getting all these different things moving quickly and not wasting time and moving efficiently. He's shoring up a lot of people. He's embarrassing some folks, showing you what real government really looks like with real leaders when they really hit the ground running and they're very serious, shoring up some people. So some folks are starting to get nervous as far as what's going on. So this is a shakeup for the Democratic Party to a large extent, shaking heavily from the largest municipality, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, and having a huge effect, internationally as well. But this is where this is coming from, New York, and this is going to resonate in a lot of different places. Like I say, not necessarily saying it's DSA, but it will be more. Well, what are you doing for the people? What are you looking to do for people's everyday existence and so forth? How are you guys going to address that the way that Mandami's people and so forth are addressing their issues, if you will, and Mandami being the titular head of this and one who was leading by example. This is pretty strong. It's going to be difficult to play this down. Very difficult to play this down, though we are looking politically, certainly around the country, as those who are trying to do so from the media standpoint. It's going to be difficult to do that as we continue to see these victories happen here in New York. But that's where things are on the ground. I would say that would be very true in many other places. I'm going to say that as well. But I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to leave it at that so far. So hopefully that kind of answers your question, Mike. But it's very strong here in New York right now on the Mandami side, very strong. And you have the billionaire class and so forth. They're shaking. They're starting shaking their boots a little bit. They're getting nervous. They don't know and don't really have an answer to knocking this out the box the way they would like, without creating immense damage. Let's just say that, and we may see that. But anyway,
let's go to Renaissance Man.
Yeah, Mike. No, one thing I will say, the lady, the Afro Latina, I think her name is Dara Lizia.
Chevalier. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, she's actually a PhD candidate. So I think she's getting her PhD in sociology. She was someone I think Mandami knew personally, and actually recruited to run. I think there's still a pipeline. I think it's just more of like, it's going to be less of, hey, this is this person's turn to go do such and such. You got to go do this. I saw someone say that, hey, a lot of Dems have basically kind of locked people out of, almost try to lock a generation out of politics. So I think what you're seeing is definitely a pushback. And Mandami's doing really well, obviously. He's really showing that when you come in with an agenda, it's this is what it looks like if you're serious about winning. And obviously he won big with the candidates. And then, I think it's just yesterday or the day before as well, he delivered on another campaign promise of getting rents frozen for 1 million New Yorkers in rent stabilized apartments. So for the next, I believe, 2 years. So he's had another big win, after this as well too. So Knicks have won as well. So the guy's really I probably can't think of a mayor who's had a first 6 months has been as successful as he's had. So he's definitely a rising star in the Democratic Party. And I think, they're already deeming it the Mandami wing. Here in DC, Janice Lewis George, she won. So she's going to be the next mayor. She's a Democratic Socialist as well. I think it's really just showing that, hey, you're going to have something to really run on. And people are really big on affordability. And really the establishment really doesn't have an answer to that. You see more people be more upset that these people won and, people voted than you really have been, hey, this is our agenda. And last thing I'll say, I think the lesson in all this is I saw something that several of these candidates that won, they were powered by a very small group of, you had your traditional voters who came out, but there were small turns of people, these are DSA candidates. DSA is not a big organization. It's got a following and it's got chapters in most large cities, but it's not just a behemoth of an organization, but they were organized and, people came out to vote. And I think it was in the New York Post, it was highlighting it was 7-8% of these, educated, young people really got together and really powered this. And that's got to be my message to a lot of these people who say that they are disengaged with politics, or they don't see the point. Once again, being involved, having an agenda, going out and voting, recruiting candidates, knocking doors, doing all that work that people kind of just think doesn't matter. It does matter, and it drives changes. And I think this shows that, hey, the American political system definitely has problems, but if you're organized and you really got people willing, good candidates, a good message, and people who are actually doing the work, you can really shake things up, which I think we're going to see going in the fall.
I just want to say very quickly, you bring up an excellent point, because that's exactly kind of what's going on. These guys, they ran a very retail, once again, and what Mandami has set forth is a way that kind of how to go out here and really contact people. And these are retail political people. They really are going to the doors, talking to people face to face, and really listening and getting from them what these people really, really want. And it's not a question about, it's what my donors think, it's what the people are thinking. And that's kind of that's what's happening here. And that is going to resonate around the rest of the country as it goes on. There will be a vicious counter with respect to the Democratic Socialists and so forth. Certainly, we're going to see that inside of the Democratic Party as well. You see where the corporate Dems and so forth are going to be swinging it out. So this needs to happen. This needs to go down. There's got to be some house cleaning here. And for those who are kind of on the wrong side and are not really handling what the really needs and the issues of what folks really are about, things of what folks really need and what they really are about here. These guys, some of these politicals are not going to survive. And like I said, Hakeem Jeffries is best play this very intelligently. Because things are starting to roll up around him.
Let's go to MOT.
All right, so it's not hard to understand why this dude won and won big. Once you run like the FDR type of unifying, what brings people out to vote type of politics, stop making it about AIPAC and make it sort of kitchen table issues, you're going to lose, and you're going to lose by a large margin. That's where people wanted the Democratic Party to actually be at. But they're so controlled by the corporate money. And what happens when you win, when you don't have all that corporate money? It makes a lot of people kind of scared, because their whole livelihood is based on this political duopoly, take money from both sides, kind of bet on both horses, or there's a slight change in one party over the next. But when you actually get out, have things that are going right, and you actually win, and you see the actual outcome, because the people are paying attention. It's not like Madame is going out there doing these personal press conferences for people who don't care about the process. No, the results speak for themselves. They know how things was before, and they know what's being concentrated on now. It's really not that hard. I think it's a good deal. That's what people always wanted or claim they wanted. Now it's here, now everybody's complaining about it. I don't get it. But that's all I got.
No, it's interesting that one mayor can shake up, a whole lot of can shake up the room like that, and get people on board with his endorsements, whereas Trump's endorsements have been abysmal failures across the country. I think he's like 1 for 20 or 1 for 8 or something like that. He has a number of people that are going to be leaving office, and so there is a blue wave coming, and I think this is the blue wave of Democratic Socialists emerging. But I think there was always that socialist wing of the party anyways. Bernie kind of represented that wing of the party, even though he's a registered independent. When he needed to run, he ran on the Democratic ticket. But that being said, you have your AOCs, you have your Mondanis, you have your Daralizas, you have the what's the other woman that Renaissance just mentioned in DC? Janice, is that how you pronounce her name?
Janice Lewis George.
Yeah, Janice. And so you have this emerging wing within the Democratic Party, and I think that they're going to be here for a while. In fact, I think they're going to be here for the next couple of election cycles. And so the question is for Democrats, how are you going to manage all of this? A lot of people put a lot of pressure on Jasmine Crockett, but Jasmine Crockett was moving in that direction too. Quiet as kept. If you look at a lot of the bills she sponsored and co-sponsored, she was moving in that direction. So for a lot of, and you also have to take into consideration, Cori Bush was another one of those people. Jamal Bowman was another one of those people. So you had that wing of the party already there from a few years ago. It's now you're starting to see it cluster in New York, and I don't know how that's going to play out across other battleground states, but it's a wait and see for right now, because it's a good time between July and November before you start seeing more candidates either run for city council, run for state positions. School board is still a critical role for a lot of left-wing politics there as well. And so we will see that. We'll see that come about.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you're already starting to see. I think you're starting to see the groundswell within major cities. So like you said, if you have a DC, you have a New York. We have the lady who's running, the Indian woman who's running in Los Angeles for mayor. I wouldn't be surprised if this pops up next in your Portlands, your Seattles, your Minneapolis. Places like that. I know Buffalo at one point, they had a black lady who won, and there was a whole controversy there where they basically got her out of office, I think, by running as an independent. So I think some more of these progressive cities, you'll continue to see this trend. I think that will be interesting to see if you see this deliver, and then you start seeing more pressure in other places for these types of candidates, because like you said, Cori Bush, she's running for re-election, and she's already said if she won, she's not promising that she will support Hakeem Jeffries as speaker, as well as the Afro-Latina woman who won in New York. She's confirmed the same thing. So I think you're going to see a lot of shakeup. You've already had 13 centrist Dems who have already put what they call a Promise for America campaign, because they're pushing back against democratic socialism. But it's several things going on. And this is gonna shake up black politics too, because it's really two issues. You have people wanting a much more progressive message, saying, hey, you're not really focusing on affordability, and then that ties to corporate Dems. But then you're also seeing the Israel issue creep up again and again, of how people perceive what's going on there, and really support for the party. And that's one of the things I think is gonna like shake up some black politics, because even most recently, I don't know if you saw, even Warnock was taking some criticism for his position on whether the Democratic Party should be, a pro-Israeli party. So that's an underlying current in all this as well, not just the economic populism.
Yeah, that is going to be a big piece. It's going to play very big as it is now. As we're looking at, that's where AIPAC and all that really comes into play as well. Is that Israeli piece? It was big in the 24 election. Wasn't handled well. Let's just say by Kamala, and Michigan. A very key battleground state. Was or blue or one of those key blue states was lost, and all that plays in. So that's all going to play a big role. But when we look at the Democratic Socialists, of course, as we look at the Democratic Party as being, as we all know, and we say it here on the Brain Trust a great deal, is a big tent party. We also have to look at kind of how the Democratic Socialists and so forth have been involved with the Democratic Party literally for decades now. I mean, we can go back to the 70s with respect to the 72 election and all of that, with the Social Democrats there and moving on that side from 72 on. We've seen a lot of influence from the from the Democratic Socialists, but they have been kicked back to some degree, but they've come back again. It's been up and down a bit. But they've been a part of it. They've been a part of the party for quite a while. So I just bring that up to say that, as the party realigned, you had McGovern running, back then, who was very liberal, and he had a lot of socialists, in fact, supporting him during that period. Of course, he lost. I believe he lost to Nixon. That's what that was. That was Nixon. It was a blowout, but yet, they were there. 82, they were there in the 90s and so forth. And so I'm just saying, the fact that we're seeing this kind of rise up in the party a little bit more, it's not because this is something new, but they've been around for a while, and it's their time to rise right now, given what's going on. So I just want us to be clear there. Being that the Democrats are a Big Ten party, you've had this, this element, this aspect inside the party for quite some time.
Yeah, and a lot of their support is coming from the 18 to 35 demographic of voters. That's also a key point, because your boomer demographics, anything above 50 at this point is starting to shrink from a number standpoint. And so, your next wave of voters is coming from that 18 to 35, and they are not necessarily identifying with the Democratic Party, but they're identifying with one or two issues, or they're identifying with a new movement. They want something different. I think Republicans went through this as well with the Tea Party.
That's exactly how I was going to bring that up, because this is like the Tea Party movement. There's no question about it, and it's going to grow. But go ahead, Mike. Excellent point you bring up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the momentum is very similar. But we're starting to see that fade right now in the Republican Party, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is no longer there. What's the other guy from Florida? The one who was chosen to be the Attorney General under Trump.
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz, another one. He's out.
Well, he's making a comeback. Apparently, he's trying to. That's just recently announced. But yeah, he was out for a minute. Yeah. So, but I'm saying those people who came from that Tea Party movement kind of fizzled out, but mostly because they were culture warriors. Whereas here, they're Democratic Socialists and these other new candidates are really focused on policy and big ideas. And one of the bigger ideas is cutting off support to Israel, which could play a significant role at local levels.
And I'm saying local because you're not going to get a whole lot of support within the Democratic Party to kind of boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. But at the local level, Mayor Mamdani has the ability to cut off their relationship with Israel. He doesn't have to send NYPD to go get trained in Israel. He doesn't have to do business with Israel if they pass a resolution within the assembly. Would it be the assembly for New York City? I don't know how you guys classify that.
Yeah.
In the assembly to say we don't do business with countries that are actively engaging in human rights violations. It doesn't have to say Israel. But if they put that to the ballot, that's a big problem for Israel. Because what that does is it sets a precedence for everybody else. Now you better get on board too. Because if the voters are voting on this at the ballot, and I don't know what the numbers in New York are. I know in Boston you only need, or in Massachusetts you only need 77,000 signatures to get an item on the ballot. But once that goes on the ballot and those 18 to 35 demographic come out in wide numbers and vote for that, yeah, I would say Israel's in some serious trouble at that point. Because when you're big blue states like New York City proper, Boston, Philadelphia, DC, in these areas really start putting things to ballot and voters really come out, you're gonna see a whole tectonic shift in not just left-wing politics, but just politics as a whole, where you would look really bad trying to run on a ticket with AIPAC behind you or any affiliation with Israel. Because what that's going to do is also going to pull in those right-wingers from the Tea Party who are actively, wanting to cut off aid to Israel now. That brings them out because now they're the new swing voters. Because that one issue is what's swinging them over.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is some light at the end of the tunnel with all of this, because getting Mamdani's endorsements to the past the primaries, yeah, that's great, but there has to be followed up with a lot of more critical action, or you're going to lose folks over the next election cycle, which is what happened with the Tea Party. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think I know you called. I know you're pointing out like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I put her more in like the America First everything. I mean, she rode sort of the back end of the Tea Party, but if you remember, go back to that first wave of the Tea Party. That was like your Sharon Angles, that she was a big one. That's what's her name out of Minnesota, Michelle Bachmann, people like that. That was that first wave that kind of came through and fizzled out. And then you sort of got that second wave of a Marjorie Taylor Greene, Chip Roy, that whole Freedom Caucus, really that cast of characters. But that's the thing I think you have to make sure is that, these people are actually able to be in position, especially in the House, because Mamdani, he's the mayor of New York City, which kind of runs the state, does a little bit different. But obviously, he will have a lot of political capital. Some people will say he will even be a kingmaker. Obviously, he can't run for president, but that he will have a lot of influence in 2028. But I just think you have to make sure that these people get in, they have a caucus, and that they're able to, really push and effectively legislate. And ironically, I think you may even have some, they may even have some help from some strange bedfellows in the sense of, on the Israel issue, you're seeing how Tucker Carlson, someone like that, is pivoting. He claims he's left the Republican Party, but I think even some of these Republicans are going to be eager to work with even the Democrats on affordability issues, just because, you can only culture war for so long, and it does appear that there may be a little bit of horseshoe theory going on as far as the far right and the far left. They may disagree on how to get there, but I think there's an agreement on hey, the Israel issue and affordability. So the establishment may be taking shots from multiple sides that they didn't anticipate.
Yeah, the establishment is going to have to they're going to have to reestablish, and They're going to have to start looking at making some different changes and looking at, changing as how things move, because this is kind of where things are. The Trumpian game came in here. They pushed things way far to the right. There was going to be a reaction to that. This is the reaction, and it's going to be pretty vitriolic in many respects, as we have seen. And we talk about New York. Let's look at. I'm looking at a place like a Minnesota, where in all their local elections and so forth, the Republicans were getting crushed, rallies of 93-7 and all this kind of craziness. So in certain areas, the Republican Party is actually, in some respects, quasi dead. So the Republicans are going to have to play some role about them coming more towards the center, if you will, because they don't, they're out of here. So that's what you're looking at, and that's what they're going to have to. That's what they're going to have to do. So they're going to have to play that game. So yeah, we will see some of that. How far we will see some of that go will be interesting to see. But we're definitely going to see some shifting, moving from that extreme right where these guys are to having them move more towards the center, strictly for survivability. So that's kind of where we are. Mike, you had made a mention a while back. Had it not been for Trump coming in here potentially and looking up and getting the election, maybe the Republican Party may have been finished a while ago. I don't know. You did make that statement, of which made some sense as far as how things were kind of going in the past. But we're at that point now again, and we'll see how far this takes. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the Republicans shift to some of this as well, because this is going to greatly affect them.
MOT?
Yeah, for me, they're not going to notice how radical the Republican Party is until Trump is out the door. Like, they'll accept the radicalism as long as Trump is pushing it. They're not going to accept it if Tom Cotton is pushing it, right? And I think people are really underestimating Trump not being, he's going to be a kingmaker outside of politics until he eventually dies in a couple of years or whatever. But at the end of the day, people have no idea. Without the immigration issue kind of lulling people into a slumber and the actual personality of Trump, the Republican Party really doesn't have anything to it. And like the big media people, like the Tuckers and, they're trying to make that pivot to try to drag the party toward a different direction before they end up on the outs. Because once you're rich and already rich and your people are still poor, that's a hard thing to sell. But that's just where we're going to be at. And we have to just wait it out till this dude get out of office, if he leaves office.
And that's a whole nother stream in itself.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out, share this video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.